Last week, I injured my shoulder, and this bike became the bike I didn't want to take out. Not because I couldn't ride it, but because any mistake, even at slow speed, could cause a problem. Once it's moving though, it doesn't feel like a problem at all. Every time I look at this bike, I can understand why people think it's too much. It's massive, it's tall, it's wide, it's heavy, and when you're moving around at the garage or trying to manoeuvre at walking pace, you're very aware you've got a big motorcycle underneath you. This is a 2008 BMW R1200 GS Adventure, and before I bought it, I'd heard all the usual descriptions. It's a tank, it's an old man's bike, it's a massive adventure bike that spends most of its life on tarmac. But after owning it for a while, I've started to wonder, is it too much bike, or is it the size that makes it more interesting? Because there's something quite strange about the GS Adventure. Standing next to it, it looks enormous, but once you're riding, that size just disappears. I think that's one of the things that people who've never owned one of these don't really realise. You look at the weight on paper, and you think it should feel like a bus, but it really doesn't. A big part of that is obviously the boxer engine. You've got those cylinders sticking out either side, and a lot of the engine mass sitting relatively low down in the bike. Then you've got these massive wide handlebars, giving you loads of leverage, the upright riding position, and the way the suspension works. It changes direction far more easily than something this size probably has any right to. And you can see why police riders and advanced riders have used GS for years. In the right hands, these things can be ridden ridiculously quick on the road. And I'm not talking about straight line speed. There's plenty of bikes that will destroy this in a straight line. It's the way the GS carries speed through normal roads that surprises you. You can see what's going on around you. You've got loads of control through the bars. The suspension deals with rubbish road surfaces, and the bike just feels planted. It doesn't encourage you to ride it like a sports bike, but you can still make very good progress on one. Well, for normal road riding, I actually like the size. You get plenty of weather protection, there's plenty of room, you can carry luggage, the tank range is ridiculous compared with some bikes, and it's comfortable enough to spend hours on. So on the road, do I think it's too much bike? No, not really. The problem starts when the speed disappears. Moving this thing around the garage is completely different to riding it. Suddenly all that weight you forgot about comes back. If you stop slightly off balance, put your foot down somewhere awkward, or you have to push it backwards on a slope, it reminds you very quickly that this is a big motorcycle. And that's something I've noticed even more since having the Monkey. Obviously that's the completely opposite end of the scale. You can move the Monkey around without even thinking about it. You can turn it around in any tiny space, stick your foot down anywhere, and generally get away with things that become a much bigger problem on the BMW. But once I'm actually riding, I choose the BMW for most journeys without even thinking about it. Which brings me on to the bit I still don't know the answer to. Off-road. I've bought a trail pass for the ABR next year, and my first thoughts were, I've got an adventure bike, I'm going to take an adventure bike and I'm going to use it. But there's quite a big difference between riding a GS down a road and taking a quarter-ton motorcycle onto potentially mud, loose surfaces, rutted trails, when you haven't got much off-road experience at all. I've already had the back move out around on muddy track, and that was enough to show me that road riding experience doesn't automatically translate into knowing what you're doing off-road. That's why I want some proper training before ABR. I also need to change the tyres. The Conti Road Attack 3s that are on it have been good on the road, but they're not what I want when I start doing proper trail riding. I'm looking at something like the Dunlop Trail Max Raids, which should still work on the road, but will give me far more ability when the surface gets loose. And this is where the question about the size of the bike becomes more interesting, because genuinely, I don't know yet whether learning to ride off-road on a GS Adventure is a brilliant idea or a stupid one. There's an argument I'd be better off buying something lighter, learning the basics on that, and then transferring those skills onto the BMW. But there's another part of me that thinks this is the bike I actually want to ride. This is the bike I'm taking to ABR. So maybe I need to learn how to use this properly instead of making the difficult decision to buy a new bike and going on that. Now, I'm not planning on stripping this down to try and make it into some enduro bike, because I know it isn't. It's still a big BMW GS Adventure. But what I can do is take off the luggage. I can sort the tyres out. I can tinker a little bit with the suspension settings, remove the pillion seat, and basically do the best I can with such a big bike. And if I drop it, I've still got to pick the bloody thing back up. So I think I've answered half the question. On the road, no, the BMW GS Adventure isn't too much bike. In fact, I think the size is part of what makes it so good. It looks like a tank when it's parked up, but once you're riding it, it makes far more sense. Off-road though, I don't know. And rather than pretending I do, I think finding that out is going to be the most interesting part.